All right, let's dive into the world of diffusion models. Those AIs that are making waves with these incredible image generators you've probably seen online. But today, we're going deep, really deep, into a brand new research paper fresh from January 17th, 2025.
It's called Inference-Time Scaling for Diffusion Models Beyond Scaling Denoising Steps.
Wow, even the title sounds intense. But I'm sure you're going to break it down for us. What's the secret sauce in this paper? What's got you so excited?
Well, usually when we want better AI, we just think bigger, right? Bigger models, tons of data, train it forever. But this paper flips the script. What if instead of just size, we make the AI smarter, give it more time to think, during the actual image creation process?
So instead of just muscle, we're talking brain power. I like it.
Exactly. It's called inference-time scaling. And get this, they found that by doing this with these diffusion models, they're getting noticeably better images using the same AI.
Really? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, can you give us a super quick explanation of how these diffusion models actually work? Just enough so everyone's on the same page.
Sure. So picture a perfectly clear image, right?
Yeah.
And then imagine slowly adding noise to it until it's just pure static. That's the forward process. Now a diffusion model, it learns to reverse that whole thing. It starts with the noise and step by step removes it until, boom, clear image. Each of those steps is a calculation, and we call them denoising steps, or in the paper, they use number of function evaluations, which is a mouthful. But just think of it as like how much computational effort it takes.
Okay, I'm with you. So it's like cleaning a really messy room, one thing at a time until it's perfect. More steps, cleaner room.
Perfect analogy. And yeah, more steps usually mean a better image, but there's a limit, You can't just keep cleaning forever and expect miracles.
So this paper, they found a smarter way to clean, not just, spending more time on it.
You got it. They're all about finding the best possible place to start that cleaning process. They call it the golden noise, like the perfect starting point that'll lead to the most amazing final image.
Golden noise. I like that.
Yeah.
But how do they even know which noise is the golden one before they make the picture? That's kind of trippy.
That's where things get really cool. They came up with this framework, two main parts: verifiers and algorithms. The verifiers, think of them like judges. They're pre-trained AI models that can look at an image, even a potential one, and score how good it is. Some are like strict graders looking at the whole thing. Others are focused, like, is it sharp? Does it match what you told it to make?
So a whole panel of art critics, each with their own thing.
You got it. Now the algorithms are the search methods. They try different starting noises and use the verifier's feedback to get closer and closer to that golden noise. Like, some explore randomly, some are systematic, some follow the most promising leads, stuff like that.
So judges and explorers working together, what could go wrong?
Well, and this was surprising. They found that if you're not careful with the judges and how they explore, you can actually end up with worse images.
Wait, really? You work harder but get a worse result? How's that even possible?
It's like teaching to the test, except here they call it verifier hacking. Imagine you have this judge obsessed with how sharp an image is, so the algorithm just keeps finding noises that make super sharp images, but they don't have any detail, no realism,
So it passes the test but doesn't actually know the material. That's fascinating. And kind of scary.
It is. And the researchers, they wanted to figure out how to avoid these pitfalls. So they did a bunch of experiments. They used ImageNet, which is this massive data set of labeled images, to see, okay, how do different combinations of these verifiers and algorithms actually do?
So like a laboratory for AI, what'd they find?
Well, they started simple, random search. The algorithm just makes random noise, the verifier scores it, and they pick the best one.
Kind of like throwing darts blindfolded.
Exactly. And surprisingly, with what they call oracle verifiers, which basically have access to perfect scores like FID and IS, it kind of worked. More random samples, better quality. But in the real world, we don't usually have perfect judges.
Right. Those oracle verifiers sound pretty fancy. So what do they do next?
Moved on to supervised verifiers, things like ScyllaP and Deno. These are models trained on tons of data, so they can connect images with descriptions or visual features, like experienced art critics.
So not just strict rules, more nuanced judgment.
Here's where that verifier hacking really showed up. With random search and these supervised verifiers, the algorithm would often find noises that, game the system. High scores on the verifier-specific thing, but not actually good images overall.
Back to that teaching to the test problem. Acing the test, but not really understanding anything. Did they find ways around this?
Yeah, they tried some fancier search methods, zero-order search and search over paths.
So less blind dart throwing, more actual aiming.
Exactly. So zero-order search It starts with some noise and then explores nearby noises, making little tweaks based on the verifier's feedback. Slower, takes more computation for each step, but way less likely to fall into that verifier hacking trap.
Quality over speed. What about search over paths?
That one's even more interesting. It doesn't just focus on the starting noise, it actually explores different paths the noise can take throughout the whole denoising process, like finding the best route through a maze, not just the best starting point.
That sounds intense. Did it help with the verifier hacking?
It did, but it was tricky. It really boosted some scores, especially FID, but how well it did really depended on the specific setup. Definitely needs more research, to unlock its full potential.
So each new algorithm is like a new tool in the toolbox. What else did they look at?
Well, they also tried this whole framework with text-to-image models, the ones that make pictures from description.
Whoa, so making AI art even better. What kind of judges did they use for that?
Had to adapt things a bit. Used verifiers that specifically looked at like how well the image matched the text and other criteria. Things like CLIP score, which measures how well the image and the prompt match up, and image reward, which is trained on what humans actually prefer in those AI-generated pictures.
So judges who specialize in AI art, did they stick with the same search algorithms?
Yeah, but they also threw in a curveball. They tried using a large language model, an LLM like ChatGPT, as one of the judges.
Hold on, an AI judging other AI art. How'd that even work?
Right. But LLMs are amazing at language, so they figured, why not? Maybe it can tell us something about image quality, and guess what? It totally could.
Wow. Did they just, ask the LLM, is this a good picture?
Not exactly. They gave it specific things to judge, like, is it accurate to the prompt? Is it original? Is it visually appealing? Even does it have emotional impact? And its judgments lined up pretty well with other metrics, suggesting it could be a really useful tool for, judging the whole picture, so to speak.
That's wild. Like an art critic, but an AI one, analyzing the technique and the feels.
Exactly. This whole research, it's really showing a shift in how we think about AI. It's not just raw power, it's about understanding and guiding its thought process.
I'm telling you, this is mind-blowing. We got fancy
let's
search
dive into
methods,
the world of
specialist judges,
diffusion.
even AI art critics. Models, those AIs that are making waves with these incredible image generators you've probably seen online. But today we're going deep, really deep, into a brand new research. Oh, hey there, how can we help?
There, can we explain the NFE? I'm a little confused.
Hey there, listener. Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like you want a more fundamental explanation of diffusion models.
Absolutely. We're happy to take a step back and clarify some basics. We'll make sure to keep it grounded while we get there.
Yeah, so before we get to the fancy stuff, we'll cover... Oh, yeah.
I mean NFE, the matrix for the scaling at inference-time scaling.
Okay, listener, I see what you mean. You're talking about the number of function evaluations.
Yes, you're jumping right into the heart of it. It's a crucial term.
So when we're talking about those denoising steps that we're using to clean up the image, we can also think about them as the number of function evaluations, or NFEs.
Exactly. Think of it as the amount of computation it takes for each step in the denoising process. It's how we measure the work the AI does.
And this paper, it's all about finding the right way to spend those function evaluations, those NFEs.
Right. Instead of just throwing more NFEs at the problem, they're optimizing how those NFEs are used.
So, if you're trying to find something in a room, you can search randomly or you can search carefully, right?
Precisely. And this ties directly to their key idea that some starting points for the denoising are just inherently better.
So instead of just brute forcing it, they're trying to find the golden noise, like we were saying before.
Yes, and that's what the search process is all about. It's about finding the best noise using a limited number of function evaluations.
Which involves all those verifiers and algorithms we were going to talk about.
Exactly. And we'll see that the search algorithms they use are actually a lot like how we problem solve in real life. It's actually quite intuitive.
Okay, I'm with you. So it's like cleaning a really messy room, one thing at a time until it's perfect. But some steps are more important than others.
Exactly. And each of those steps, each cleaning, is a calculation, an NFE, a function evaluation.
Okay, got it. More NFEs can mean a cleaner room. More NFEs can mean a better picture, but only to a certain point.
Perfect analogy. And yeah, more steps usually mean a better image. But there's a limit. You can't just keep cleaning forever and expect miracles. You start to hit diminishing returns.
So this paper, they found a smarter way to clean, not just, spending more NFEs on it.
You got it. They're all about finding the best possible place to start that cleaning process, the best noise using the least amount of function evaluations.
The matrix I see what you're getting at, listener. You're saying that the diffusion process is like going from the real world to the matrix and back again.
That's a great analogy. It's like starting with the ones and zeros of the noise and building it back into the coherent image.
Exactly. It's taking that jumbled mess of noise and finding the picture hiding inside. Okay, so now that we've established that, can you maybe elaborate a little on the practical application of this concept?
Sure. So that reverse process, it happens in many steps. The model is figuring out what to remove in each step. And those steps, we call them denoising steps.
Okay, so more steps means more denoising, I guess.
Well, usually yes, but this paper is suggesting that it's not just about more steps, it's about what it does in those steps.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've been talking about diffusion models and their crazy ability to create realistic images from just a little bit of noise, right?
Yes, and the traditional way to improve those images has been to just add more denoising steps, more NFEs. More steps equal better images, or so we thought.
But this new research, it's saying that there's a different way, a more efficient way to use your NFEs.
Absolutely. Instead of just brute forcing it by adding more compute, we can be smarter about how we approach the problem.
Golden noise, I like that. But how do they even know which noise is the golden one before they make the picture? That's kind of trippy.
That's where things get really cool. They came up with this framework, two main parts: verifiers and algorithms. The verifiers, think of them like judges. They're pre-trained AI models that can look at an image, even a potential one, and score how good it is using various metrics.
Okay, so it's not just quantity, but quality.
Exactly. It's like the model is thinking more deeply in each step rather than just blindly removing noise.
So it is like what we said earlier. It's about brain power, not just muscle power.
Yep. And to do this, they use these things called verifiers.
Verifiers, what are those?
Think of them as like a quality control team for the AI. They check the image at each step and give it feedback.
Okay, so it's like someone is double checking the work.
Exactly. And based on that feedback, the AI can make better decisions on how to remove the noise, how to refine the image.
So it's constantly refining. That's pretty cool.
That's the key. And this is what this research paper is all about. It's about finding smarter ways to...
Yeah, uh-huh.
We jump to the conclusion.
Okay, listener, I see what you're saying. You're eager to get to the big picture.
Absolutely. It's great that you're thinking ahead. Let's try to connect the dots.
So if we jump to the conclusion, we can see the impact this has on AI image generation.
Yes, it's really about making the whole process smarter, more efficient with how we spend our NFEs.
And as we said earlier, this approach uses those verifiers to try to find the best path through the maze and use NFEs strategically.
Right. And it's not just about making better pictures, but using the same number of NFEs or fewer to get there.
So instead of just brute forcing it by adding more compute, we can be more strategic about it.
Exactly. And this paper showed us that we can do this by thinking about it as a search problem.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, how some noises are better than others.
And the algorithms they use to search are actually quite similar to how we solve problems in real life.
Okay, so we can jump to the end, but let's quickly recap what we talked about, that we are all on the same page.
Sounds good. So we talked about diffusion models and how they turn noise into images with denoising steps.
And that this paper explores how we can be smarter about how we use our NFEs during the image creation process.
We also explored verifiers, these AI judges that assess image quality at every step.
And we saw how algorithms use verifier feedback to find the golden noise, which is the best way to spend NFEs.
We talked about how to avoid verifier hacking, which is when the model cheats. And we've gone through multiple ways to improve efficiency with the same or fewer NFEs.
Yeah, and we saw that these researchers looked at multiple ways to solve that problem using different search algorithms.
Right. They explored things like random search, zero-order search, and search over paths to spend NFEs wisely.
So with that in mind, it's important to remember that this paper isn't just about better pictures.
Exactly. It's about a smarter approach to AI image generation and about wisely using those NFEs.
It's about optimizing the process and using the same amount of compute to achieve better results, which also means using the same number of NFEs.
And that's because the researchers were thinking about things differently.
Yes, it's not just about having the best AI, but also giving the AI the best resources in the right place at the right time.
And this was done during inference, which is when the model is actually creating something, not during the training, like traditional methods.
So it's like you've got a machine that's trained, but you're giving it extra time and resources while it's creating the final product to make it even better.
Right. And the authors of this paper, they formulated the problem as a search problem and spent their NFEs in such a way.
Which is why they needed verifiers and algorithms to help them find the best noises and ways to spend the NFEs wisely.
And those algorithms actually mimic how we approach problem solving.
So a whole panel of art critics, each with their own thing, judging images based on different things.
You got it. Now, the algorithms are the search methods. They try different starting noises, different ways to spend the NFEs, and use the verifier's feedback to get closer and closer to that golden noise.
So judges and explorers working together to make sure we spend the NFEs wisely.
Well, and this was surprising. They found that if you're not careful with the judges and how they explore, you can actually end up with worse images, even with more NFEs.
So instead of just increasing the denoising steps using more NFEs, they look at this like a search problem.
What's fascinating here is that they are searching for the best starting point to denoise from instead of just assuming the starting point doesn't matter and blindly using NFEs.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. What did they find about all of that?
It's quite fascinating, actually. They found that using these different verifiers to guide the search helped significantly improve the quality of the images and use those NFEs wisely.
So by giving the AI a quality control team during the creation process, you get better images while also using the NFEs more effectively.
That's the basic idea. And they weren't just relying on more steps. This was about making each step smarter and more effective.
And what about these search algorithms you mentioned? What's the deal with them?
Well, they're like the strategy the AI uses to look for improvements in the image. They compared multiple algorithms. For example, random search, zero-order search, and search over paths.
Okay, so not just one way to search, but many. So what were the big takeaways from all this?
One big thing is that this method, it's not just about getting better images, it's also about making the whole process more efficient and more strategic with how we use NFEs.
So it's like smarter, faster, better, all at once, and it wisely uses NFEs.
Exactly. It's a new way to think about diffusion models, focusing on the quality of the process rather than just throwing more compute at the problem or blindly spending NFEs.
So what does this all mean for the future of image generation?
Well, it suggests that we can push these models even further without needing massive increases in size or training time, and by spending NFEs wisely.
Right, and in the case of diffusion models, this usually comes down to adjusting how many denoising steps the model takes to go from noise to a clear image.
Okay, so we're not just training the AI to be good, but we're also giving it more resources to be even better during the actual creative process.
Yeah, like some noises are just better than others when it comes to generating high-quality images. That makes sense, and that is why some paths through the maze are more efficient to use NFEs on.
Exactly, and this is where verifiers come in. These are algorithms that judge the quality of the generated images and guide the search and the wise use of NFEs.
Oh, so they're like the judges in a beauty contest, except